Hello Internet and welcome to Commander 1-on-1. In this episode I'll be rambling about something that I got the most question last year from the members of my playgroup. Deck building for a specific team. How to do this, how to make the team work and do its thing and so on. The topic needs something to act as an example, so I'll use the theme of a question that actually made me think about making this video. Demons. One member of my current playgroup bought a Warhammer 40k precon deck, the Ruinous Powers to be precise. It's a dual themed for chaos in form of a cascade and demons. And while cascade is fun in moderation, the precon suffered a lot from the amount of the 5 drops and Wrath of RNGesus. The owner decided it's time for the change and upgrade to something different, and he chose a backup commander from the deck, Belacor the Dark Master. I have no idea about the actual lore of this character in the Warhammer universe, but the card suggests he's some kind of demon prince, and probably the edgelord, but that's mostly a given in this setting. Nevertheless, he's also a 6/5 flying demon noble that costs 3 generic, 1 red, 1 black and 1 blue mana, with triggered abilities that are for some reason templated as a keywords. His Prince of Chaos ability draws you a card at the cost of 1 life for each demon you control when he enters the battlefield, which is quite good for a deck that has a nice density of demon as a creature type. It's basically a Sign in Blood or Painful Truce on a stick. Worst case scenario is a 1 turn of Phyrexian Arena. The spice comes with his Lord of Torment ability. Any other demon that enters the battlefield while Belacor is on the field will deal its power worth of damage to any target. Yes, any target. It's a worst term surge for demons on a stick, and demons tend to be on the beefier side. So to sum it up, we have a big flying threat that draws us cards when it resolves and makes other big threats into even bigger threats. He also gives us access to trickles of cards to choose from. All in all, a very solid choice for a commander to build around. So let's start. First of all, small disclaimer. This will not be a strict deck tech or narrated primer, and there will be no ready-to-use decklist in the description. The purpose of this video is to show how to analyze the commander, how to figure out the broad strokes of a game plan for it, and show examples of covering the weak points and amplifying the strength for a specific team. So, with that out of the way, let's start with a formation weakness. Our commander costs 6 mana as a baseline and has 0 built-in protection. We are also in colors that do not have much good way to permanently ramp on mana or provide permanent protection effects. Additionally, the built around type is also on the more expensive side of mana value spectrum. This puts us in a very specific situation right from the start. We will spend most of our early game without our commander, and almost all of the fun and splashy things that work well with him are also expensive. And while he does not die to Doomblade, virtually 99% of removal deals with him instantly without some protection or interaction from our side. Those are noticeable drawbacks, but it's nothing backbreaking. We just need to adjust our approach to deal with those. And in my opinion, we have at least 3 different ways to explore. Option 1. Go fast. While our colors don't have steady permanent ramp, we have probably the most explosive options to burst mana. Dark Ritual, Cabal Ritual, Sitting Song, Desperate Ritual, Sacrifice, Mana Gazer, and so on. We can also cheat on mana using lands with High Tide, or combo of Cabal Coffers plus Urborg. Of course, we also have commander staples in the form of artifact mana, Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Valwar Stone, Talisman, etc. But my playgroup believes in Vandal Blast supremacy, so I can't exactly count them as a permanent ramp sources. Not to mention that Wrath of the Skies now exists and it can turn your artifact time into bad time very quickly. Moving on to option 2, go slow. With all colors we have a possibility to play control/stacks game plan, banking mana for some explosive turn later when we just flood the board with demons and protect them before smashing everyone in the face. We do that with help of cards like Big Score, Strike It Rich, Unexpected Windfall, Black Market Connection, Spiteful Banditry, the Balrog of Moria, maybe Descent into Avernus and Vision of Ruin if you're feeling spicy. All this while playing such fun cards like Trinisphere, Godfero's Statue, Curse Totem, Damping Sphere, Crawl Space, maybe Winter Moon. We will not be fun at parties, or anywhere else, but if we don't start playing before turn 6, other players can just wait for us. This is probably my least favorite way, since those games will be a slog, and probably boring to everyone. Henceforth, option 3. Cheat. Within the rules, of course. Our colors give us tools to cheat those big demons into play much earlier than they should be able to get there. Be it Sneak Attack or Reanimate, Animate Dead or Necromancy package. We can make it happen. There are also lines with Urza's Incubator, Dream Devourer, or even Yggdrasil Rebirth Engine of all things. And since we're cheating, we can also take some cards from different strategies to do this fast and safely. What can go wrong? For me, the strategy of cheating stuff into play seems to be the best combination of fun and consistency, so let's take a more detailed look on this approach, starting with demons, since we need to figure out what batch of problems present to the table. I think it's appropriate to start with those bundled with Bellocker inside the deck, at least those that are actually good. Let's start with Lord of Change. For 6 and a blue we get a 6/6 flying War 3 with an Architect of Deception triggered ability. Nobody ever remembers that, so let's call it a bootleg Ancestral Recall since it draws 3 cards. A big flying threat with a built-in protection. Very nice. Not exactly fun to cast for that 7 mana, but we are not here to do that. Next on the list is Blood Taster. 5 and red, 6/6 flying trample that can attack up to 3 times per turn if all your opponents are still around. From Nurgle we have a great unclean one. 4 and a black for a 4/5 demon that pings opponents at the end step and makes up to 3 additional demons. Works great with both abilities of our commander. Exalted Flamer of Tsinch is a 2/4 body for 2 generic, 1 red and 1 blue mana. Important part here is the pure value on the upkeep trigger. Returning an instant or sorcery to your hand, even at random, can be very powerful, especially if you have an useful one stocked in the graveyard. The ping for 1 damage to each opponent when you cast instant or sorcery is just a nice bonus. Moving on to Herald of Slaanesh. 2 and a red for a 2/2. Not great, but gives all our demon spells a 2 mana discount, which is a huge thing for a deck built around the type with a very high average mana value of threats. And for some reason also gives all other demons haste. That can snowball into a stupid amount of damage if you drop 2 big flyers after him. There is a lot other demons in the precon, but they are rather sparse in my opinion, at least when we take a look at all other cards with that type that we have access to. For example, Runescarred Demon, reprinted in MTG Foundations, 6/6 with flying for 5 generic and 2 black mana. With a Demonic Tutor stapled to the body, it is another one of those not so great to cast but excellent to cheat into play. Can lead to some really degenerate stuff, but more of that later. Abyssal Harvester is a new one from Foundations. A 3/2 demon for 1 generic and 2 black mana with a relevant ability that is also a graveyard hit. One of the few low mana value demons, so it's nice that he can actually be of some use. A big scary villain from Duskmourn, Volgavolt Terror Eater, is a 9/9 flying demon with lifelink and ward cost of sacrifice 3 permanents, who also steals opponent's card if they are put into a graveyard and you can cast it using your life. He costs a whopping 6 generic and 3 black mana, perfect target to cheat into play at turn 2 or 3. From older sets we have even more powerful threats, to mention a few notable ones in no particular order. Shadowgrange Archfiend, 6 in a black for 8/4 that gains us life while removing the biggest threat from each player. Once in a blue moon we can probably cast it for its madness cost. The Balrog of Moria, 4 generic double black and a red for a massive 8/8 trample and haste. When it dies we can turn it into an exiled base removal for up to 3 targets. It can also cycle for 3 and a red, giving us a card, 2 treasures and putting itself into the graveyard for later use. Lord of the Void is another 7 mana demon, this time for a basic 7/7 with flying, but it allows us to exile the top 7 card from the opponent's library and yank the best creature from them for free. Archfiend of Depravity, 3 double black, of course flying, but this one is on the smaller side with only 5 for body. Upside here is the trigger on the opponent's end step that limits anyone to 2 creatures. Burning Rune Demon. From Kaldheim, a 6/6 with, as usual, flying, and an excellent ability on enter. For generic and double block is not perfect, but you effectively get a Entombed and Demonic Tutor on the same stick. Lord Xander, the Collector. This one is a special kind of evil. For generic, 1 blue, 1 black and 1 red is more of a late game casting cost, but even that doesn't feel that bad after you actually read this card. Forces these cards on enter, mills half of library on attack, and removes half of non-land permanents when dying. Probably the best target for honest use of sneak attack in our chosen type. And finally, Varagot Blood Sky Sire. 2 generic and a black for 2/3 with Death Touch is not so bad, but his boast ability is more interesting. After an attack you can pay 1 and a black for the Imperial Seal effect, without the loss of life. The next 3 demons on the list are in some way special. They are enables for different avenues of demonic bullshit, each in its own unique way. The most honest one is Dream Devourer. An 0/3 for 1 and a black that gives all your cards without Foretell ability a Foretell cost. It also gets temporary boost of +2/+0 when you do it. It basically enables us an advance payment option for our spells. The funny thing is, the Foretell is an alternative casting cost, so we can apply other discounts to it later, and our threats are mostly safely hidden in the exile zone. Casting a Runescarred Demon for 4 generic mana and double black is not so much fun, but casting for 2 generic and 2 black sounds much better. All our non-land cards can be foretold. That means board wipes, utility artifacts, counter spells, removal, and so on, which directly translates into the ability to do more splashy things at once. Downside of this approach is the fact that you can only foretell during your turn, but if you have nothing else to do, tapping out for a discount later, especially during early turns, may be not a bad idea. Second place on the special case list goes to Gyruda, Doom of Depths. We will not be using her as a companion, but rather as a cheat engine. Her on-enter ability allows us to mill 4 cards from each player library and cheat an even mana value creature directly into play. Besides that, she's a 6/6 demon kraken with mana cost of 4 generic and 2 hybrid blue-black mana. Some of you will probably remember an old Gyruda combo deck and think about clones. And you'll be right. With our commander, Gyruda deals 6 damage while entering the battlefield, so chaining clone effects one after another while filling our graveyard can result in a lot of damage. With the worst case scenario of putting one of our even mana cost demons into play for free, or stealing something from our opponent. Moving on to the third special case, Doomsday Excruciator. A 6 black mana demon that even showed himself at the World Championships in 2024. His enter the battlefield effect exiles all the cards from each player library except the bottom 6. Which by itself can be devastating for many decks, but when we combine it with Maddening Cacophony, we have a nice clean A+B combo of milling/exiling all our opponent's decks. It's not fast or easy to cast, but it has a very low opportunity cost of just putting one specific non-demon card into our deck focused on demons. With the Reanimator Approach, we may in some cases even cast it with Kicker, mill half of the opponent's libraries and then steal their best threat for ourselves. Oh, and Doomsday is also a flying 6/6 that drops a card on upkeep for some reason. And with this, the Meet the Demons part of the video is done. Time for all the other stuff that needs to be inside the deck to make it work, or at least attempt to. As mentioned earlier, Reanimator is an archetype that will work very well with the high density of high mana value creatures, and we can enable it in the form of a nice 2-step plan. Step 1. Put things into graveyard. Entombed, Unmarked Grave, Lively Dirge, Buried Alive do a great job on this. Simple, effective and cheap spells. Step 2. Bring stuff from the graveyard to the battlefield. Here we have Reanimate, Persist, Animate Dead, Necromancy, and of course again Lively Dirge. The last one has a limitation of mana value 4, but that also has its uses. And yeah, this is it. It's not a complicated strategy. Put a big monster into a graveyard some way, then pull it out. Diverging a little from that topic, we can have similar strategy that helps us with filling the graveyard while putting the pressure on the board, in a form of one simple enchantment called Sneak Attack. For 3 generic and 1 red mana we get an outlet that enables us to put any creature on the battlefield with haste for 1 additional red mana. Supposed downside of that is the fact that we need to sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step, which puts the card into a graveyard, and we want that quite often. Now, since we established a tendency to cheat out something ahead of the curve, let's take a look at another way to abuse big scary things: temporary and permanent copies. Twin Flame is a very nice cheap sorcery spell that for 1 and a red can make a token copy of a creature we control. And it has Strive, which means for each instance of 2 and a red extra mana we can add an additional target for the spell. Each of those copies will have its own enter the battlefield trigger, and since we will probably target a demon, we'll trigger a second ability of our commander. We can also add Molten Duplication, which has similar effect, or even Hit Shimmer for even more of this action. Moving to more permanent copies. Since we have a blue mana in our commander color identity, we have access to clones, which can be an additional copy of any of our demon, or just something temporary that we want from opponent's board. The most versatile ones include Mockingbird, Phantasmal Image, Phyrexian Metamorph, and Clever Impersonator. If we want to be more cute, we can add something like Sakashima the Imposter, Stun Double, Visage Bandit, or Spark Double. Just pick your favorites. Also, we're in red, so we can snuck Cursed Mirror in. And now is the time for the most boring part. All the other stuff that will make this bunch of cards into a functioning deck. Some of them I've already mentioned in the earlier parts of the video, but now we have more context for this example approach, so some things should be clearer. Let's start with Big Score. 3 and a red for an instant that has an additional cost of discarding a card. Perfect for putting a big demon stuck in our hand into the graveyard while netting us 2 cards and 2 treasures. Unexpected Windfall is a functional reprint of aforementioned card, so why not run both if you have the space. Strike It Rich is another one of the new wave of red spells that gives you mana in form of treasure tokens. First cast is just for 1 red, the flashback cost is a little more, 2 generic and a red. Both on sorcery speed, but if everyone else is casting ram spells or putting mana rocks into play, why not bank our mana for the future turns? Dark Ritual, Cabal Ritual, Sting Song, Mana Geyser have the same function, to turn a card into mana to pump something bigger faster. Mana Geyser can be especially devastating if you have a sneak attack in hand, 2 or 3 demons, and a Twin Flame to make everything hurt. In terms of interaction, which is supposedly dreaded by commander players, we have grid access. Suspend, Delay, Negate, Counterspell, even Mana Drain, Red Elemental Blast, Pyroblast, Chaos Warp, Withering Torment, Vandal Blast, Meltdown, Blasphemous Act and Edict, Deflecting Swat, Fierce Guardianship, Deadly Relic, and so on. Moving back to more on-theme cards, we can also cleanly utilize 2 other cards from Duskmourn, Unholy Annex and Demonic Council. First one should work with almost any creature on our side, and the second one, at its worst, gives us a 2 mana tutor for a creature of the type we built around. Of course, we can also jam Demonic Tutor, Vampiric Tutor and Gamble inside our deck. The only thing stopping you is yourself. And if you want to be very cute, how about Liliana's Contract? We can actually pull this off with the amount of demons that should be in our deck. It will probably require some shenanigans with Leyline of Anticipation, or Vedalken Orrery, or sneaking demons on the end step of the opponent that goes before us. And now some honorable mentions for the Commander Horizons 3 that gave us bangers like Sink into Stupor, Fell the Profane, Sunderic Eruption and Bloodsuck Insight. Those slips into our mana base almost without any question. There's also a reprint of Urza's Incubator there, which is actually a good addition if your deck is focused on one creature type. It's a symmetrical effect, but how often you have a mirror match with another demon deck? You can answer in the comment below. Now that we have a little bit of idea what cards go into the deck, we can talk about an actual game plan for it. At least in some broad strokes, since the topic probably deserves a separate video on its own. So, in a very brief summary, a game plan in this context is a nice catchy way of answering the question, how does this deck win? And you can probably already pick some hints out from earlier parts of the video. Let's start with a strategy related to our commander, dealing direct damage when our demons enter the battlefield. We have one copy of this effect in our command zone, but we can easily amplify it to an absurd degree with just a few cards. Starting with Warstorm Surge. Next in line are trigger doublers. We can put Panharmonicon, Roaming Throne and Virtue of Knowledge without much drawback, since we will probably have quite a few enter triggers, all that in a nice 4-card package that can be boosted by other cards that have more utility. For example, Mirror Maid and Clever Impersonator. If we want to go really stupid, let's put a Rite of Replication here. Each of those cards is good on its own and not exactly a dead draw at any point in the game. We cannot call them combo pieces, if anything those should be synergy pieces in our deck. Next on our bucket list is an A+B combo of Doomsday Excruciator and Maddening Cacophony. For it to work we need to actually cast the demon, so mana requirements are quite big. 6 black, 1 blue and 1 generic. We can enable it using cards like Dark Ritual and Cabal Ritual, or by including Cabal Coffers and Urborg in our mana base. Other than that, we just need to get our 2 pieces into our hand. Mystical Tutor, Vampiric Tutor, Demonic Council and Demonic Tutor should be enough, and they will help with almost any other strategy that we can think of. And now we have 2 distinct game plan ideas that can use some overlapping cards. As for the question, do we add more? The answer is, unfortunately, it depends. Each card has its opportunity cost of putting it into the deck over another card. After all, we have only 99 slots to use. In my experience, going over 4 distinct strategies in the deck tends to end badly. So what do we do with our Plan C and Plan D then? We try to utilize cards we already have in our deck for other reasons. For example, if we had a lot of rituals that boosts our mana for big demons earlier, we can add Passing Flames and some outlet for ridiculous amounts of mana. Think Exsanguinate, Torment of Hellfire or Crackle with Power. We also have a lot of big creatures that tends to end in our graveyard, as well as Entombed and or Unmarked Grave, so we can slap a nice duo of Rise of the Dark Realms plus Mizzix Mastery for an instant hilarious board state. To my surprise, this video dragged out for a substantial length, but you can summarize it into this. Start with 1, max 2 clean ways to win in your chosen team. Then build a list of cards that enables those strategies, and after that start to fill the rest of the deck slots with necessary evil like interaction, removal, card draw, and so on. When you're around 85 to 90 cards in the deck, try to think of other ways of winning with the support cards you already have in your deck list. And that's it. No, really. It's actually quite simple, but people tend to overthink everything. I hope my rambling gave you at least some idea how to approach the topic by yourself. It can be quite fun. The next video should probably be about development of a game plan and thinking about strategy, but I'm not sure if the topic isn't too big and I will end with some kind of essay that goes for 40 minutes or more. So I'm open to suggestion in the comments. See ya in the next one. But seriously, put Liliana's Contract into your demon deck.